A wedding is supposed to be the beginning of forever. Promises made, vows exchanged, a future built on trust, or at least that's what Luevenia Gardner believed. The photos tell one story: a glowing bride, a beaming groom, a night filled with love and celebration. But behind the scenes, something darker was lurking, something far more dangerous. Or so it seemed. Just days after saying "I do," the unthinkable happened. A woman burned alive, a community left in shock, and a husband at the center of it all. What really happened to Luevenia Gardner, and who was the man she married? Tonight, we uncover a love story that ended in flames. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like in this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get started. Luevenia Gardner. To those who knew her, she was the embodiment of joy, a beautiful woman, full of life, with a heart that believed in fairy tales. She dreamt of a perfect future, one where love would carry her through every challenge. But not all dreams are meant to be realized. And then there was Marcus Williams, the man who seemed to make everything in Luevenia's life fall perfectly into place. A charming, well-spoken man who, on the surface, appeared to be the perfect husband. Tall and confident, the kind of man who knew how to make anyone feel special. He swept Luevenia off her feet, their whirlwind romance leaving no room for doubt. This was love, wasn't it? Their wedding day arrived, a picture-perfect affair, just as Luevenia had always imagined. A stunning bride in an elegant gown, walking down the aisle toward the man she thought she would spend the rest of her life with. The ceremony was grand, luxurious, filled with family and friends who all marveled at the couple's love story. But as the celebration continued, something shifted, like a shadow that no one could quite see, a whisper in the back of the room, a glance exchanged between those who knew Marcus before the cameras were rolling. Luevenia had her happily ever after, but behind closed doors, something more dangerous was quietly unfolding. What was Marcus hiding? And how long would it take before the truth came to light? In the months that followed their fairy tale wedding, things seemed to fall into place for Luevenia and Marcus. On the surface, they were the perfect couple. But for those who knew them best, a different story was beginning to unfold, one that no one could have predicted. Luevenia's family and friends began to notice subtle, yet unsettling signs in Marcus's behavior. He was always around, always present, but never far from Luevenia's side. At first, it was small things: his constant need to know where she was, what she was doing, and who she was with. He had an opinion on everything, and it wasn't long before people started to feel that something wasn't quite right. Her best friend, Jessica, remembers a conversation they had late one night after a visit from Marcus. Luevenia was quiet, almost withdrawn. Her eyes seemed distant. When Jessica asked what was wrong, Luevenia hesitated but eventually spoke up. "Sometimes he gets really angry, but I know he loves me." Those words, spoken with a mix of fear and confusion, stuck with Jessica. She wasn't sure how to respond, but there was something in Luevenia's voice that made her heart heavy. She wanted to believe everything would be okay, that the anger would pass and that love would fix it. But deep down, Jessica knew something was terribly wrong. A love that comes with fear is never truly love at all. No one knew that this love, the love Luevenia thought she had found, would soon turn deadly. The honeymoon phase didn't last long. The rosy glow of newlywed bliss began to fade, and reality set in. The man who had once seemed perfect was showing a side of himself that Luevenia hadn't seen before, a side that was darker, more volatile. It started with shouting matches, the kind that echoed through their home. Marcus would raise his voice, his anger building over seemingly small things. Misunderstandings, disagreements that would have been settled with a calm conversation turned into violent outbursts. At first, Luevenia tried to brush it off. "He's just stressed," she'd tell herself. "He's just had a bad day." But the patterns were undeniable. Friends and family began to distance themselves, noticing the change in both Marcus and Luevenia. She wasn't the same woman who had walked down the aisle. She seemed quieter, withdrawn, like a shadow of her former self. The spark in her eyes was fading. But one night everything came crashing down, the night that would change everything. It was late, too late for something like this to happen. Luevenia, in a moment of desperation, reached for the phone. The urgency in her voice is unmistakable, but what she was saying, what she feared, it was too late to turn back. 911, what's your emergency? Please, he's gone crazy. I don't know what to do. He's threatening me and I'm scared. Please, you have to help me. I don't know how much longer I can keep him away. Please, I need help. He's burning things. I don't know what he's going to do next. Please, ... Ma'am, stay on the line. Help is on the way. Can you tell me your address? As the 911 operator stayed on the line, help was already on the way. But Luevenia's call had revealed something no one was prepared for, the extent of Marcus's rage and what he was capable of. The police rushed to the scene, their sirens cutting through the night. But what they found when they arrived, what they discovered behind those closed doors, was far beyond anything they could have imagined. What did the officers walk into that night? What could drive a man to such violence? And what would happen to Luevenia in the minutes that followed? The scene that greeted the firefighters was one they would never forget. A blazing inferno consumed the house where a life had once flourished. The flames were fierce, licking at the walls and windows, and the smoke hung heavy in the air. When they arrived at the couple's home, there was no mistaking the scale of the devastation. As the firefighters fought the fire, the grim reality began to sink in. The structure of the house was collapsing in on itself, and what they would find inside could only be described as horrific. In the master bedroom, they found Luevenia Gardner, burned beyond recognition. Her body lay in the wreckage, a horrifying testament to the brutality of the night's events. The room was charred, the furniture destroyed, and yet the scene told a story of unspeakable violence. Emergency responders immediately recognized the severity of the situation, and they knew this wasn't a simple accident. The smell of gasoline was thick in the air, and every step toward the wreckage felt more like a step into a crime scene than a place of tragedy. Meanwhile, Marcus Williams, her husband, was nowhere to be found. His alibi began to crumble almost as soon as it was introduced. According to him, he had been out running errands miles away from the house. But as investigators dug deeper, they found something troubling. Traces of gasoline were found scattered around the house, a trail leading from the garage where Marcus claimed to be, all the way to the bedroom where the fire started. It was clear that this was no random accident. But the real breakthrough came when the security footage was reviewed. Cameras outside the house had captured a figure, dark, hooded, moving around the property the night of the fire. The footage was grainy, but it was enough to put Marcus at the scene. But the chilling discovery didn't stop there. Investigators uncovered something even more disturbing, something that would send shivers down their spines. A journal. A small, leather-bound book that Luevenia had kept hidden away, tucked under her bed. Inside, investigators found entries from just days before her death. Words that were full of fear, confusion, and heartache. A record of the terror she had been living through. I don't know how much longer I can do this. Every day the anger gets worse. I'm scared of what might happen next, but I don't think he would ever hurt me. Or would he? I don't know anymore. Luevenia had known. She had seen the signs. and in her final days she wrote about the fear that haunted her, a fear she couldn't escape. And as investigators read those words, they knew the truth. This was no accident. Marcus Williams had been planning something far darker than anyone could have imagined. Now, we're left with a chilling question. Was this a premeditated murder, a cold, calculated act of violence? Or was it a crime of passion gone horribly wrong? Did Marcus Williams plan this from the start, or did something inside him snap? We want to hear from you. Drop your theories in the comments below. What do you think? Was this a deliberate act, or was Luevenia's death the tragic result of a love that had turned toxic? And here's another question. Would you have seen the red flags? Looking back at the signs of Marcus's controlling behavior, would you have recognized them before it was too late? Let's talk about it. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Your theories and comments might just help uncover the truth.